Hi all, I'm going to be doing these videos on a weekly basis. Hopefully, if I stay committed, keep me committed for two particular reasons. First reason is this woman that I worked with, we stay in contact with good friends, and last week I was having a prayer. I thought about her. During my prayer, I sent her the Bible text I read that morning, and she wrote back and said, "Is this for me?" I said, "Yes." She says, "I don't understand. Can you explain?" So I called her later on and explained to her over the phone. And then second reason, I also do this because there was these boys back in Christchurch that I promised I'll do these Bible expositories online, and I haven't done it. I haven't done these videos. So now, here is the fruit of those promises a year later, instigated by this woman that I love very much. And I sent her this text yesterday. Last week I sent her one, which was Philippians 4 verse 6 and 7. Check it out. And I explained that to her. And now this week I read Proverbs 15 verse 22. Now if you don't know what I'm talking about, the Bible's split into 66 books. And if you open the Bible, you look at the contents, there's these books there that you can look up: Genesis, Exodus, Deuteronomy, and you just go through it. Well, I'm reading through Proverbs. And the person that wrote this book, his name is King Solomon. And King Solomon's an interesting dude. He is the son of David. And David, if you've heard of the David and Goliath story, it's that dude. He becomes the king, and a successful one at that. He makes Israel successful, and he has a son named King Solomon. King Solomon says, "God, I want to have wisdom. I want to be a wise man." And God says, "There'll be no one as wise as you ever." So he does. He gets wisdom, and with that wisdom, he writes this book, this Proverbs. You know what a proverb is. Proverbs like a saying. So we get this insight into a king who was successful in economy and diplomacy and politics, all that other good stuff. So we get to have a bit of an insight and see what you got to say, King Solomon. And in Proverbs 15:22, chapter 15 and verse 22, he says this: "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed." Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed. Interesting. I like this text, because it kind of reminds me that when you're making plans, you want to work with people that know what they're talking about. You want to work with people that experience it. Funny enough, this woman that I told you about earlier, this woman that I sent this text to, when I bought my first car, man, I was so happy with this car. I thought, man, this is the meanest car ever. And one of the first questions she asked me was, "Do you have insurance?" I was like, "Yeah, I got insurance." And I told her the type of insurance. She goes, "No, you need comprehensive insurance." I said, "Nah, that's cool. I'm safe. I'm sweet." I was about 21 at the time. Thought, I've never had an accident ever in my life. Lo and behold, about a year later, I have an accident and I suffer badly for it. I should have listened to what she had to say. My dad told me to get insurance. Can't remember who else told me to get insurance, but I thought, man, it's expensive. It's too expensive. Wow. The price I had to pay afterwards, it was more expensive. The experience of suffering was more expensive. If I had just listened, taken on the advice from these experienced people, I wouldn't have had to go through what I did. So I learned a big lesson that time. But there's another story that I find very interesting that this text advises us of. And this story is found in another book. It's 1 Kings, and you'll find it in chapters 14 and 15. And then we find King Solomon. He's still in power. He's working his people. He's working their fingers to the bone. He's raising the taxes because he wants to build all these great towers and great buildings, and he's making the best temple for his God that he can ever make. And there's a guy named Jeroboam, and Jeroboam is one of his workers. He becomes one of his officials, such a good worker. And he's working his fingers to the bone, working on the wall, and one day he's going home, and this guy named Ahijah, he's a prophet. A prophet is somebody that God trusts to reveal secrets and oracles that other people aren't ready to hear. And this guy, Ahijah, he's ready for it. So he goes up to Jeroboam on his way home after he's clocked out of work, and he says, "Jeroboam, check this out. God has a word for you." Jeroboam pays attention, and he rips his clothing into 12 pieces, and he gives 10 pieces over to Jeroboam and keeps 2. Man, it's pretty dramatic, right? Like if somebody ripped their shirt off you, it's pretty awkward for dudes, but for girls, they'll be like, "Oh, I'll call the cops." But this guy, Ahijah, rips his clothes, splits the pieces, and he says, 10 tribes are going to come to you, and 2 tribes are going to go somewhere else, elsewhere. And so this prophecy is given to Jeroboam. Jeroboam goes, "What? You mean King Solomon's only going to have 2 kingdoms and I'm going to have 10? This is crazy. So he walks home, and for some unbeknownst reason the Bible doesn't reveal to us, Solomon finds out about this prophecy. So the first thought that he's thinking is, I got to kill Jeroboam. So he puts a hit out on him, and Jeroboam's captive. He's gone. He's gone to Egypt. He's not going to have an ounce of being killed, right? So he goes and hides in Egypt, and he waits there until Solomon dies. And Solomon dies, and Jeroboam makes his way back into Israel, and King Solomon's son Rehoboam is now in power. And Jeroboam says to him, listen, me and these fellas, me and these boys, they're like a work union. They said to him, we believe the work conditions are too high. We believe your taxes are too high. We want you to bring them down, and we want better working conditions. Rehoboam says, listen, give me 3 days. I've got to talk to some people. So he does, makes a very good maneuver. He goes to his father's, his late father. He has some senior officials, some advisors that he used to speak to. Good move, Rehoboam. He sits down with them. They tell him, listen, man, you need to win the heart of the people. We understand the climate that's going on right now, and they don't like you, man. You're still doing what your father did, and you got to win the heart of the people. Rehoboam's like, So what he does is he now goes to his friends that he's made officials, his boys. You know, it's like me back in high school. You know, when you're like, hey, what should I do about these fellas? You know, and typically, the guys in high school, like, man, show them who the man is, man. Put your foot down. Gotta show who's boss. You know, you gotta get the respect, man. Don't fake it, just take it. And so he gets the same thing, and he listens to his friends, right? And so when Jeroboam comes back with his union friends, and they say, listen, what have you made? Have you made a decision? Rehoboam's like, yeah, man. Yeah, I made a decision. You know what? I'm gonna make you work harder, and I'm gonna make the taxes higher. Stupid, man. What a stupid move. And what happens? Jeroboam and his boys, they're like, oh, you know, they put up the pickets, and they start, you know, protesting, rebelling, and then 10 tribes come together rebelling against the king. And Rehoboam, he's got to make haste. He's got to gap it himself now, and he takes off to Jerusalem with only 2 tribes left to in loyalty to him: the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin. Out of 12 tribes, he's only got 2 now, and there's only 10. And he does this within 1 year. He doesn't even have it as long as his father King Solomon had it, and his father David. And so, because his lack of taking on advice from wiser people, man, he failed miserably. And what his grandfather and what his father did to unify the 12 tribes of Israel, he did successfully divide them in 1 year. And so, in the famous words of that poet who says, isn't it ironic? That's what she says. She says, isn't it ironic? Because listen to this. In Ecclesiastes 2, verse 18 and 19, King Solomon's on his deathbed, because he writes in this book as well. He's on his deathbed, and he starts writing his reflections. They're like confessions of, man, you know, I made some mistakes, and here are some things that you need to learn from me, you young people and people coming up, and son Rehoboam, listen to what I have to say. And he says this, chapter 2, verse 18 and 19, then I hated all my labor in which I had toiled under the sun, all the work he did for 39 years. I toiled under the sun because I must leave it to the man who will come after me. Who is this man, Solomon? Do you know who it is? Probably doesn't. And who knows whether he will be wise or a fool? Yet he will rule over all my labor in which I toiled, in which I have shown myself wise under the sun. This also is vanity. I find that funny. I find that uncanny. I find that ironic, that it is his own son that becomes that fool that ruins all the labor that he toiled for. Crazy, isn't it? Wow. I'm reading this book. Saladin. He's the total opposite to this guy, Rehoboam. This dude surrounded himself with advisors, good advisors, people that he trusted, people that needed experience in military and diplomacy and politics and military strategy and tactics. He had all these people surrounding him, and he took on their advice and he followed their advice and everything they did. In fact, he was able to, as a sultan, he was able to take cities and allow Christians, Jews, and who else knows, live in the city in harmony because he allowed them to. He lowered the taxes and allowed people to have his praise on their lips for Saladin. And, you know, like this guy, he's a powerful historical figure, man. I mean, he unified the Sunnis and the Shiites in the Muslim faith. And that had never been done before. They were struggling to find some type of unification, especially with the Crusades and the fact that they just were too lazy to do it. This guy comes along and he successfully does it because he understands the council. I don't know whether him and Solomon, whether he came across the book of Proverbs and went, hey, man, this guy, King Solomon, he's got some good things to say. But listen, well, how about us, man? How about us? What are we doing in our lives? You know, are we taking on counsel and advice as fathers, as mothers? Have you seen fathers and mothers that are successful now that you got parents, now that you got kids, that you are taking on their advice? Are you preparing to get married? Have you looked for some couples that you say, hey, man, I think they're pretty successful. I want to find out what they do in their marriage to keep it successful. Are you considering buying a house or making a big move, or are you looking at these career prospects? Say, what are you? Everything you're doing, you need to find and surround yourself with these wise people and take on this advice. And listen, I'll take you a step further. I know you may not even believe in Jesus, but I do. I absolutely do. But indulge me, man. Indulge me. You may be at your wit's end. Take that risk. Take the risk. I dare you. Close your eyes and ask God for some counsel and say, Lord, what would you have me do? Who are the people that I need to speak to? What word would you have for me to do and to say and to act on? But don't be like Rehoboam. Be like Saladin. That's funny. Well, you know what I'm saying. That guy's cool. That guy was someone to look up to. All right, two.
Isn't it ironic? Don't you think? It's like rain